Good evening to everyone present. I would like to extend a warm welcome to everyone joining us today. Before starting, I would like to thank our RC, the Regional Chairperson, Khushman, Malika, the Vice Overall Chair External, and Ikshita, the Secretary of Marketing and Sponsorship, AMSA India, for giving us this amazing opportunity to host this webinar in the first place. One request, please fill the feedback form which will be posted after the webinar in the YouTube chat. And we'll also be taking audience questions, so please feel free to put up your question in the YouTube chat. We'd like to start our session.
Before we start the session, I request Team Kaplan to present their video for the promotional video.
So we have Dr. Sparsha Reddy. Dr. Sparsha is an intern from Narayana Medical College and hails from Nellore. She's a proud Kaplan student as well as an AMSA member who has scored a 270 on a step 1. Thank you so much for joining us today. We also have Dr. Tenzin Jamyang, who is the Global Director of Kaplan and has been shaping lives of international students for over 15 years. He has himself been working closely with the Indian medical graduates, and his guidance has been helpful for students to attain residency of their choice. His presence is certainly going to be a boon in today's session. So I would request Dr. Sparsha to say a few words before we jump into the questions.
Thank you, Ashneet. Hi, guys. So I'm Sparsha Reddy from Nellore, Andhra Pradesh, and I'm excited to be a part of this talk show. I'm excited to help people to achieve their target scores in step 1.
I would also like to request Dr. Tenzin to say a few words before we start.
Hello, a very good morning from New York, and good evening in India, I guess. But before I say hello and hi, I just wanted to show you the first snow of New York. I know that some of you guys, especially in South India, may not have seen snow, so I just wanted to show you the first glimpse. All right, that being said, we're going to come back to the main event. And I'd like to thank AMSA India and Logiquest, and congratulations to Dr. Sparsha. So let's dive deep in. And then, like the host said, we will entertain the Q&A sessions after the end. So please hold on to your thoughts, and then we will tackle your questions either to me or Dr. Reddy or anyone for that matter.
So starting with the questions, the first one is for Dr. Sparsha. So when and how did you think of the thought of US residency? Like, when did you think of started that you want to prepare for US residency?
So I decided this during the start of the internship. So, US residency, like you all know, it gives a lot of opportunities. You get to study in like the top colleges, and that kind of experience, I wanted to have that. So that's when I decided I'll pursue USMLE.
So when did you start preparing for step 1?
It was during the start of my internship. I started with Kaplan lectures, followed by first aid. So what are extra points I found in Kaplan? I used to annotate in first aid. And then I do Q banks, like I did Kaplan Q bank, but most importantly, UL and also Pethoma also helped me a lot. So I should say these are my important resources.
So for how long did you study on a daily basis? Like, could you please share your daily schedule with us?
So it was a total of 18 months, which is not actually ideal. So average people take about 6 months, some take 9 months, but I don't advise anybody to take 18 months, but I'm a master procrastinator, so I ended up taking 18 months. So, and daily schedule, I think it had the Kaplan lectures starting in the morning, and then followed by studying first aid like in the afternoon session. And then the next day I would do whatever I studied from Kaplan lectures and first aid. I used to do questions in UL to just check how thorough I am, and if I have any like I'm not good at any topic, I would just go through it again.
So next question is for Dr. Tenzin. Could you please explain us the transition of the pass-fail criteria and the consequences and its consequences?
Before I dive into that answer, let me just reiterate what Sparsha just mentioned, right? In terms of using the resources, a successful candidate is that candidate who knows how to use and when to use the resources in which criteria, right? And don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not a Kaplan person talking right now, but I'm a doctor, and I was you at one point of time. And that's why. And then secondly, like Ashneet earlier said, I had the opportunity of visiting Indian medical schools and interacting with Indian medical students for the longest time. So I kind of understand that not only Indian students, but students all across the globe, they have the wrong tendency of studying and approaching the USMLE because they may have all the resources on their desks, but they study the materials the Mbbs way. So that's the wrong approach, right? So obviously, the main successful tip that I would like to provide is start laying down the foundation strong with the Kaplan materials. I know Sparsha is a little bit kind of nervous right now, so that's why she's answering the question just like in a court, right? Ashneet is asking a question. She's just like 1-2 line because the lawyers normally tell you is like don't answer more than what you need to do because otherwise you'll land up in the wrong foot. So I do understand that. So long story short, the piece of advice that I like to give to the prospective medical students who are aspiring to apply for US residency is build up a strong foundation through the content knowledge and then use the other resources, which are equally great. First aid, UWorld, what have you. These are great resources that I'm never going to deny that, don't do that. Use only Kaplan. I'm not going to say that. Like she said, it is a great resource, but try to understand when to utilize them and when next to utilize them. All right. Coming to your question, Ashneet, yes, by the time it's Republic Day or Independence Day in India, 26th, right? When your Prime Minister Modi just kind of unfolds the flag, then USMLE Step 1 becomes pass and fail instead of the digitized, So the question is it good or bad for the IMGs? Well, there are two ways of looking at anything. One side of the coin says it's good. The other side of the coin says it's bad. But personally speaking, if you ask me, then I would say it's in the disadvantage of the IMGs, right? Let's say, for example, that now that we have the keynote speaker, Sparsha, she got a 270. In the olden times, when she applies for residency, I know as a program director or the chair how good, bad, or ugly she is, right? But now in the new world, who takes the pass and fail, then I would not know. I would just know that you passed or failed. And if you passed, I do not know how ugly you passed or how great and beautifully you passed, right? So the decision was made by NBME and the INCUS Association, organization, right? Now, remember one thing, guys. The USMLE exam was formulated by the United States Medical Examinations, not for us as an IMG, but they were meant and designed for US medical students. It was never there, designed for IMGs like us. But we happen to be here as like, hello, I'm here now. I want to do a residency. Now what? And they was like, should we make a new exam or should we give them the same exam? So then they said, like, all right, we'll just give them the same exam. So that's number one. And number two, when we moved into INCUS to pass and fail, the discussion had been happening for years. They did not really think about us. They said the reason behind this is, poor medical students in the United States, they struggled a lot. They went through the MCAT. They're so stressed. And now from day one of the medical year, if we say that we need to have a high score in step one, there are a lot of depressions, there are a lot of anxiety, there are a lot of mental breakdown, there are a lot of pressure, as if IMGs like you and I don't have or didn't have at one point of time, right? So long story short, again, it is bad because they have to decide whatever they decided. The other side of the boat is the program director and the selection committees. Now, the selection committee is the program director and the admission council. They are in a dilemma right now. I have been talking to them on a regular note. They said, like, all right, we cannot stop whatever had happened, but it's up to us to decide who we are going to choose. So what is going to happen is in the coming 2 to 3, maybe 4 years, trickling down, there would be a pollution of people like Sparsha who comes with the digits. And there would be people who just takes the exam on January 27th onwards, and they come with pass and fail. Now, who would I, as a program chair, choose or prefer? Now it's up to me. Now, INCUS or NBME cannot dictate the terms to me how I select my candidates. So now, generally over the years, we have been talking about this. Most of the program directors, they prefer to choose people with the scores because they know, because 270 is great, 250 is good, 240 is okay, 230 is all right, and then 197 is like, blah, 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 right? So these are the kind of distractions that you would have in terms of selections. So most of the audience right now, there's no need to think about it because you will, I mean, most of you guys will end up taking in the newer generation of pass and fail, right? But no one think that there's a discussion still going on that they could raise the 194 passing score, which is currently the pass and fail line, to a higher up. Now, how high, how much, it is going to be different. So it remains to be seen.
Thank you for that answer. So next question is for Dr. Sparsha. So how long should one invest into preparing for USMLE Step 1 for a good score?
So I think it's totally up to the person. I mean, up to the person's capacity. Like a few of them can do it in 6 months, and an average they take 9 months, and some take 1.5 years. So it's not the duration that matters, but how effectively you're studying every day. And I think that's what matters. So in the long run, that's going to help you. And not the amount of months that you studied, or some people can even do it in 1 or 2 months if they have really strong foundation of basic sciences. So it's totally up to the person.
Also, you mentioned the resources you used. Could you please elaborate on that for our listeners, please?
Yeah, so the way I was studying in medical college, I had to change it. So like to study for Step 1 because at least for me, it was different. So this transition was a little bit difficult for me. So when I started using Kaplan lectures and other bots and beyond and other resources, I started to learn. I mean, I started to understand how Step 1 questions are being framed and what kind of concepts I need to effectively answer those questions. So so I started with this good foundational lectures like Kaplan, bots and beyond, followed by effectively studying first aid. So first aid is like it's like the gold standard for first, Step 1, and followed by UWorld. Now UWorld is gaining more importance than first aid actually, because it's better if you study it in a question than you actually study it in a textbook. So when you do UL questions or any Q bank for that matter, even Kaplan, Mbbs, or whatever Q bank, you are effectively and repeatedly seeing those concepts, and this really helps those concepts to get integrated in your mind, and repeated revision of the same questions, like first pass of UL and second pass of UL, third pass of UL, if you are still, if you feel like you need it. All these passes of questions and those lectures, they really help you a lot. So I started with the Kaplan lectures, and then I studied first aid in Patuma, followed by first pass of UWorld. Following this, I did bots and beyond videos, and then did the second pass of UWorld. At this point of time, I wanted to take a NBME. So I took an NBME, and I actually took NBME 22 last January, and I got about 246 or something. And then following every month, I started taking NBME. First it was 250, then it was 260, and then it was 264. I never got 270 on any NBMEs, so I guess they are under predictive, as most people say. But UWSAs were accurate when you ask me. So I got 275 in UWSA 1 and 270 in UWSA 2. And that's what I got in final exam, like 270.
Thank God, this is the longest breath that Sparsha spoke. I'm glad. I would like to differ on certain points, right? And it's important because for me as a mentor who has been there, done that for years, I don't want the audience to get the wrong messaging, right? To the question of how long did it take, there is no right or wrong answer because Sparsha is Sparsha, Ashneet is Ashneet, Malika is Malika, Tenzin is Tenzin, John is John, Jill is Jill. So do not go by what people say and do not listen to people by saying like, oh, you should technically need this and this because you are you, number one. And secondly, it also depends upon which stage of your medical school or graduation are you, right? Because you are already graduated, because we have seen a lot of medical students, they take the step one preparation after they graduate or during the intern, right? And then some of the students, now that I have been just nailing down on the head, that, you know, they started studying from day one of the medical school, supplementing the Kaplan resources by utilizing the MBBS programs that you have. And honestly, when I say this about 3 to 4 years ago, people said like, but sir, we have MBBS exams, MBBS. I was like, I'm not asking you to study Sanskrit on top of MBBS, right? You're studying brachial plexus in the morning through your Professor Rao or Professor Gupta, Professor Sharma, right? And then in the afternoon or evening, when you come back to your dorm, you open up the Kaplan book and study brachial plexus. Watch the videos on demand on brachial plexus. By the time that you go back into school tomorrow morning, you'll become the god or the goddess of brachial plexus. And by the time you finish your preclinical years or basic science years, you are at the equal par with the US medical students. And that's what they do. Remember, like I told you, that this USMLE exam is not designed for us, but for US medical students originally. So what they do is, after they finish their preclinical or basic sciences years, they get a break, they study intensively for the exams, and then they take out the exam for step one, and then based upon pass or fail, then they move on to the clinical years, rotations, etc. So we also have to orient because, like I said, the biggest mistake that people make, they have all the resources, but they study the old MBBS way, right? I'll give you an example. When I first studied many years, I was during the Jurassic Park era, right? So when I first studied for the USMLE exams, I was thinking like, I was not so a gold medalist, but I was thinking like, okay, I was an above average kind of a student. So when I started reading the content, I thought I got it because obviously we know it. But when I started tackling the questions, it just blew me, right? Because in India, in your first MBBS or first prof, depending upon which part of the country you are, I think that's the lingo that you use. The questions asked would be either essay type that you have to fill in pages after pages. It's like literally whoever has got more kilograms of paper written, then they will have more and higher score. And I do remember some students telling me that they keep about 1 or 2 lines, especially, so that it just gets more pages done. And all of a sudden, 1 week before the exam, the handwritings also become bigger than small. It was before. So these are cultural things, which I'm not going to dive into because I know that sometimes my students say, like, Dr. Tenzin, is this a comedy show? Well, life without laughter is a boring life, especially right now during the COVID or Omicron, or I don't know which now new character of the Transformers are going to come in after Omicron. Hopefully not, right? But again, coming back to the main point, it all depends upon the questions. Now, the difference between MBBS question, USMLE question, And I was blown away because the first time I was like reading, I'll just give you a small example. I know this is not a real example, but similar. 35 years old John comes with a complaint of chest pain, headache, nausea, and abdominal pain times 2 weeks. He had visited Mexico about a month ago. He comes back and has a checkup. The doctor asks him to do this test. The results shows up this. And then based on the CT scan and MRI and ultrasound, whatever radio diagnostic that you have tools, then the doctor admitted him. On day 3rd of his admission, his aunt Jemima comes to visit him with dog Poochie. Okay? Now, dog Poochie jumps out of the doggy bag and runs around and bites Nurse Jennifer. Not Jennifer Lopez, guys. Don't get too much there. All right? Don't think too much, okay? Nurse Jennifer, I said, not Jennifer Lopez. Nurse Jennifer got bitten by the dog Poochie. Jennifer falls down, cracks her head, starts bleeding, and then she felt unconscious. On CT scan, it shows subarachnoid hemorrhage. But the question is, what is the predisposition gene factor for Klinefelter syndrome? You guys are like, what? I know, right? So that is exactly how unique and complex USMLE question is. It is nothing new. You know the answer, right? But the approach towards understanding the exam question is the key factor that makes or breaks the chances of getting a higher score or lower score or fail.
Thank you for that answer. So the next question is for Dr. Sparsha. So what was your approach to study US for USMLE? Like, did you do it subject-wise like we do it here, like anatomy, physiology, or did you straight away start with a system-wise approach?
It was sort of mixed actually. Initially, I started system-wise. I mean this subject-wise, anatomy, and I did anatomy followed by biochemistry, and then I realized maybe system-wise would be better. So I started again with cardiovascular and neuro, and then I went from harder subjects to simpler ones like psychiatry and hematology, I guess. I mean, it's up to the person which is hard and which is easy. So I suggest to do whatever is hard. And I guess system-wise really gives you an idea, a total idea of this system. Like you're doing cardiovascular, you get an idea about the anatomy, physiology. So you can integrate and study. So I think it's better if you do system-wise, at least in the first pass.
So during your non-dedicated study time, like, did you give tests? Like, what was the approach that you used during your non-dedicated study time?
Yeah, so I did 2 passes of UL in my non-dedicated, and then I took an NBME. I took NBME 22, like I said, and I also took a Kaplan stimulatory test. It was very useful because it has 7 blocks. So even UWSAs and NBMEs, they just have, NBME has 5 blocks and UWSA has 4 blocks. So, I'm sorry, NBME has 4 blocks, 50 questions each. So when I did the 7-hour exam, I got an idea like I have to improve my endurance because 7 hours is a huge deal. With the additional break, it's totally 8 hours. And you have to maintain the same consistency, same mindset, and same alertness throughout the exam. So the exam itself is a big deal. Like I definitely, so it's better if you have this 7-hour exam before you write So it's better if you write a 7-hour exam before the final deal, because you can see how effectively you are able to do till the last block. So if then you can plan your breaks and all during the final exam.
Shneed, I'd just like to jump in right now with the question, because I know that the question was directed to Sparsha, but I agree and disagree. That's the yin and the yang, right? That's the black and the white. You have the perfect balance, so to say, right? So in terms of the study, first, like she said, you need to lay down the foundation by being a subjective matter. you become the god and the goddess of the subjects, one at a time. And then once you are through with all the subjects, 7 subjects in step 1, then you climb up and interchange that with systemic review. Now, systemic review is the perfect time because the exam questions are going to be systemically asked. But without a constructive foundation on the subject matter, then there's no systemized kind of a study because you would be blown away, right? You would be just kind of confused. So I would rather recommend to be subject matter expert first and then move on to the new pasture of systemic review. And systemic review, first aid is a great tool, right? Like I always say, all the resources are great, but one should know how to use it and when to use it. If you are a newbie or a rookie or a naked zero right now in terms of preparation, then get the first aid, break the bones or the spines, so to say, and then coil it, just like we do, right? And then annotate each and everything and transplant it over to first aid. That's going to take time. But if you're already halfway through your preparation, then don't waste that time. Just keep your first aid away and even wait for the next edition to come in 2022, because you can do that later on. So that way, at least subjective first and systemic next.
The next question is for Dr. Tenzin. So does the final MBBS percentage matter or does it influence the score in any way?
Very good question. Now, this question is relevant, Ashneet, because now that we're going to go into pass and fail, now me as a program director have now very less tools to kind of pick and choose which, especially for IMGs, because you as medical students, you need to understand, just like, anywhere, if there's 100 spots or whatever residency, they will get the first preference because of domiciles, right? And then whatever is left over is being distributed for the IMGs like us. We have to fight and kill each other, right? Depending upon specialties and whatever have you. Now, that being said, right now, my hand as a program director is kind of a little bit clinched because at one point of time, I can decide it based on the scores and the step 1, step 2 CK, and yada, yada, yada. But now that my step 1 has been clipped, now how am I supposed to ascertain? So that's why not only before this change move to pass and fail, but I know some of my colleagues who are in the admission council, they told me that, if, let's say, Ashneet wants to become what specialty do you want? Be it in India or US or wherever.
Anyone like pulmonologist?
Internal medicine, that's first, right? So after internal medicine residency, then you'll do fellowship in pulmonary and critical care. So let's say internal medicine. If you wanted to do internal medicine, then over the past 4 years, some of the programs have started probing your medical scores in school of how strong you are in medicine. Because if you sucked in medicine in medical school years, then it's like, really? Do you think you can do it? So you need to prove your thing. And now, especially, like I said, now just moving to pass and fail, it's even more important that more and almost all the programs will start putting a microscope on your transcripts. Okay?
Thank you. So the next one is for Dr. Sparsha. What is the best timeline for a person to start preparing for USMLE? Like, if you could tell your timeline.
My timeline is not the ideal one. I decided an internship, so I took my step on then. But the ideal one would be to get a very good foundation in your first and second year, write a step 1 in third, followed by writing step 2 in your final year or during your internship year. And if possible, do some electives in internship year because, it's hard to do later. This would be the ideal one, but not everybody can, read medical college curriculum and study for your steps at the same time. So, and not everybody decides that they have to do USMLE at the start. They decide during their after graduation, during internship. So it's never too late, but the ideal one would be to get a very good foundation during your first and second preclinical years.
So the next question is for Dr. Tenzin. Like, if you could please guide us, like, regarding the process of application for electives and observerships.
Great point. During my time, no, it's kind of strange. I love talking to kids like you, because that's what I always tell my colleague Abhishek, who is the face of Kaplan in India, that I love going to medical schools because that makes me feel younger and makes me feel that I'm still a student. And I feel that energy right now as well. So the question was what?
Like, if you could please guide us through the process of application for electives and observerships.
Okay. So during my time, like I was saying, that, it says clinical experiences as one of the requirements in terms of the choices of filters. All right. So before I just embark upon that, let me give you the choices of what they call as the filters or the screening process of candidates to be called for interviews. Now, interviews, you can just imagine, just for simple sake of understanding, it's just like dating before you get actually married, right? So now, if you're attractive, if you're beautiful, if you're handsome, then only you will get dates, right? And then have the meetings. So the dates and how attractive and beautiful and handsome you are those credentials that you have under your belt, right? The scores, the achievements, the awards, the experiences, etc. Now, if you're ugly, then nobody's going to ask you out on a date. Then you'll be like, oh my God, nobody's asking me out because you're ugly. I'm sorry, right? You need to beautify yourself. You need to be more attractive. So let's say, fast forward, you're attractive, you're handsome, then you go out on a date, that's the interview. Now, during the interview, whether I call you or not, depends upon factors like scores, right? Your application package, your achievements, the research and publications, etc., etc., etc. So based on that, on top of that, it's also important that you should have a very solid, strong personal statement. Now, this is where especially Indian and Pakistani and Bangladeshi students screw up, because we have never written any personal statement, right? And then they're just like, oh, personal statement, what am I supposed to write? And it's like, tell me about yourself. And it's like, oh, I want to do this. And it's like, just like Ashni said, and it's like, I want to become a pulmonologist. It's like, okay, why? Why, Ashni? Why? I know I'm putting you under the radar right now. It's like, leave me alone, Dr. Tenzin. I'm the host. Why pulmonologist? Since when did you want to be a lungologist, so to say?
Like, during these current times of COVID, I mean, the importance of a pulmonologist has like shooten up. So that's when I got interested in it.
What have you done so that I can marry you as a pulmonology residency director? You just had like, since the COVID is happening, it's like, oh, I love lungs, right? But apart from that, my question is, what have you done so that I can marry you into my program? You're thinking about it. Aha. Right? So I need you guys. I know that I'm putting Ashneet under kind of a pressure right now, but the viewers should understand why this is important. If you want to say that you want to become this, don't tell me you want to become this and you want to become Miss Universe and Mr. Universe and Miss World or whatever, but tell me why. And then don't tell me that I just dreamt about marrying you yesterday. Tell me that you started thinking about getting into pulmonology or internal or OB-GYN or psychiatrist since your third year when you started your clinical rotations. Or let's say even the final year that you made a decision that now that you have all the exposures of all the subjects and the specialties, that you now need to embark upon this particular department, this particular specialty, because this. But don't leave it only that side. But also try to prove me that since I wanted to decide that, I did that. Just don't say like, I wanted to become an ENT surgeon. Why? Because I like ENT. I like ears. I love nose. I love throat. Don't leave it at that. Just back up your interest with certain things by saying, I did a research and I did this. I volunteered with Dr. Patel and Dr. Reddy or Dr. Rao or Dr. Ramanujan or whoever, right? And then worked on this. But when we have the letters of recommendations should be all based preferably on the procedures, right? Because I don't want letters of recommendation. I know, especially from India, I've seen letters of recommendation just like character letter, that as if like he's applying for treasurer position or some other position that he's honest or she's honest. It's like, oh, I know Dr. Ashneet. I know, yeah, I'm going to go after you, Ashneet, today. So it's like, I know Dr. Ashneet. She's a really amicable person. She's trustworthy. She's honest. I don't care whether you're honest or not. What I care for letters of recommendation for USMLE residency application is I worked with Ashneet. She worked under my supervision from this state to this state. And then she has been working and then fluent with this procedure. And then she is great at all of that under my supervision. Because obviously you cannot do the procedure yourself over here or over there. I mean, over in India, yeah, without any supervision, you can just like do it, right? But over here, you cannot. But at least just to be kind of nice, the letter of recommendation preferably get it from your HOD, the head of the department, or preferably somebody who is or who had gone to US and then came back. You get the point, because that's one of the common questions that I normally get asked. Where should I get the letter of recommendation? It's like, well, preferably get it in the United States. If by any chance that you cannot get it, then try to get it from the HOD. And if you know that one of your faculty members of your aunt or uncle or neighbor or whoever it is has returned back from the United States after doing the residency or fellowship, then that name is slightly above than Dr. Gupta, who is just an MBBS and MD from, I don't know, Bengaluru. I don't know him, right? Because he's not Dr. Kalam or somebody else that world-renowned. Does that make sense?
Thank you for that answer. The next question is for Dr. Sparsha. Did you do any research during your MBBS period?
In my internship year, we presented 3 posters in Indian Association of Preventive and Social Medicine. One was regarding COVID, and the other one was anemia in pregnant women, and the other one was HIV in pregnant women. And me and my friend, we also did a surgery research. We compared 2 types of hernia techniques, but this is yet to be published. This is all.
Now, Sparsha, my question to you is, what specialty are you interested?
Internal medicine or psychiatry. I haven't made my mind yet, but mostly okay. Internal medicine.
The 2 research that you did, one was surgery, the other one was what?
One was COVID, and the other one was anemia in pregnant women and HIV in pregnant women. Okay.
Pregnancy has got nothing to do with whatever specialty that you want to join, I guess, right? Because psychiatry is for crazy diseases, crazy people, right? So now I'm seeing that you're confused, right? Now you see the point, right? You did a great job. I know that, at your stage or at anybody's medical school year stage, nobody knows which specialty you want to join. I get that. But now the mistake that people make is what you want to show in your ERAS application, thinking that you are the most beautiful person in the world by saying like, I've done this. But for me, on the other side, reading the application is like, she is crazy. She's lost it. because she says she wants to get married to me, but she's flirting with Hrithik Roshan or Shah Rukh Khan, right? Now, that doesn't work that way. If you want to get married to me and my program, internal medicine or pediatrician or whatever have you, then you need to hide the other facts. Don't highlight that. Because the moment you highlight those, that even if you did it, then I'm going to start doubting that, okay, what is the agenda here? Right? So you need to be cautious during your ERAS application. And I'll tell you a very good example, and that to an Indian student some years ago. When you mentioned preventive and social medicine, that's PSM, right? So some years ago, I saw a gentleman, and I came across a gentleman from India who had finished his residency in forensic medicine, right, from India. And then I met with him, and then he started applying for a residency and all these things. And then he got it, right, in psychiatry. So I asked him, because he came there to take the step 3 exam, and then we were just talking. And then I asked him, it's like, okay, so you did your background in forensic medicine. So how did you ring it out? Because forensic medicine and psychiatry are 2 different aspects. Because I was like, And it's like, yeah, Dr. Tenzin, that's true. So I knew that a lot of program directors would think and doubt that I'm just kind of bullshitting, so to say. Excuse my French, right? But again, it's a COVID time, so we can, right? Lax it a little bit. So he said, in the personal statement, and even during the interview, what he wrote was, I am an expert in forensic medicine, which means I am the king of postmortem. What happens to that crazy person or suicidal person, homicidal person, or death accidentally, and what happens after that, I do postmortem. But after years of experiencing and having the expertise, I stopped thinking about what happens after death, but I wanted to go into the minds of those people, what happens in their mind before they actually died. That's why I want to move into psychiatry. And how beautifully he woven the dream. Now, if I was the psychiatry residency director, I was like, wow, you know what? I love you, right? Because it does make sense, because he's kind of coming out of the grave, right? Because he has been, kind of dealing with the dead people. Now he wants to know how they were thinking before they died. So, and then I asked him, I was like, by the way, did you really mean it? He's like, no, I did not. It's like, I have to know that, how am I supposed to get my feet in the system? So I did it. So anyways, the point here is, I'm not saying and telling and broadcasting and advising you guys to lie, but try to align what your specialties and what you did, and don't mix and match what you have done, because that'll only confuse me as a selector.
Thank you for that answer. The next question is for Dr. Sparsha. What would you recommend as the last month or the last week strategies that you followed?
Last month, I think it's better you go through another parts of first aid, like mainly the things that you're forgetting. I heard few people, few of my seniors advised me that just underline the points that you keep forgetting and you revise this in the last month of the exam. Along with that, you can do UL incorrects. And if you've written some notes or you got some flashcards from what you've studied in UL and first aid, you can study that too. And last week, I think it's better to take it easy, because it's like you have to prepare yourself to write this 8-hour exam, and it's not a small deal. So be as relaxed as you can. I took 2 days break in the last week because I was overwhelmed, I was like. So it's better to be as relaxed as you can and write UWSAs 2 and free 120 in the last week if possible, because they are free 120 gives you an idea of how the exam pattern is going to be, like how the question length and question framing. And then UWSA 2 really improves your confidence because, it's like at least 5 to 6 points over predictor. And even UWSA 1, if you can take it before the exam, it gives you like that newfound confidence that you can use to write the exam.
So, like you told that, like you took a 2-day break to get over all the stress. What are the other strategies that you use to like overcome the anxiety and the mental pressure just before the exam?
Yeah, the thing that helped me the most is talking to my friends. They used to really help me cool down, and whenever I was stressed, they would take me out, like, let's go out now because you're reading too much or something like that. So I think friends are the most important. Like if you're studying alone, you better have a study partner or somebody who supports you because this is a long journey, and having some kind of support system really helps in the long run.
I agree, because I can see the fan on top of Sparsha's head that also kind of cools her down, right? Apart from the friends. Right now it's evening, so therefore her friends are away, so but still the fan is cooling her down. That's good.
The next question is for Dr. Tenzin. So recently there have been some talks that people who complete their MBBS from an Indian medical college in or after 2024 will not be allowed to become doctors in the United States. So only from 2024, only those who have completed their MBBS from a medical college accredited by a body which is recognized by the WFME and NMC, the Indian body, isn't recognized. So what does this mean for the students who wish to appear after 2024?
Well, I mean, I got that question through my colleague Abhishek. A lot of times, especially in the COVID season, that, especially after pass and fail, that a lot of splurge, because I used to visit India twice a year normally, but because of the COVID, I was not able to visit. So I was not able to address those kind of questions in person. But it's a great question, Ashneet. What lands up happening in 2024 is just what happened with pass and fail in USMLE, right? These are talks which happens prior for many years, and then that takes shape in 2024, 2022, whatever have you. Now, let's try to understand where we are right now. In order for anyone to pursue their business or residency in the United States, you need to be ECFMG certified. But now, ECFMG certification kind of gets archaeologically dated. So from 2024, they're saying like ECFMG is going to be archaeologically dated. Now we have the WFME, right? So now, currently right now, when I looked at the latest data, okay, fine. Let me push myself back. And then the procedure of getting ECFMG certification was different in those times. So let's forget about that because that's past history. But now in the going forward, 2024 accreditations of WFME, they need a government appointed and approved association or organization that oversees the accreditation qualities and standards. So now, who is the government? Because WFME is international, right? International. Now, they need a government entity. Now, in government entity, is it the Indian Health Ministry? Or is it the MCI in the olden days? Or now the NMC? Right? So they have to appoint and approve. And I'm pretty sure right now it's 2022, just beginning yesterday. And then we have still time because there are a lot of things that are happening around the globe, which is more important than just accreditation, right? So I'm pretty sure Indian government will be kind of up to par, and especially NMC, because quite a chunk of Indian doctors, I wouldn't call it a brain drain, but they do go abroad, but they do return back and then do masters, right? Masterful works in India and then grow the business of healthcare system. So WFME, in short, is accreditation required in 2024. You guys don't have to sweat about it. Let me confide and then put you to calm by saying that once NMC approves any agency, be it international or local domestic, Indian company, which just kind of fights for the tenders, just like, contractors work, right? You fight for tenders and you get a job and you get a contract. So you get that. And then after that, that's fine. But the point that I would like to raise is that I want to use this platform as AMSA India is to get the students united and sign a petition and then push it to the NMC to look into the matter of this. Because without the students' body movement, NMC, you know how it works, right? Indian government, you know how it works. There's Punjab election going on, UP rallies going on, there's Omicron going on, there's Modi going on, there's Yogi going on. There are a lot of dramas going on, right? So I'm not going to go into the politics. Anyways, just for fun, just for color, right? But the point that I'm trying to specify is I want the medical student driven force to push this matter sooner than later. But will this happen? It should happen. It will happen. Because let me put it this way. If you minus the Indian doctors who are contributing Ashneet and Sparsha, since I can see you both, I cannot see the audience. The highest number of residents in the United States is from India. It's approximately about 55% of the residents each year is India. And the next one is Pakistan, but it drops down to around 13 to 15%. So you see the balance, right? So how important it is for India and Indian government to kind of look into this matter. So it is organizations like AMSA, like yourselves, right, to get into all the other organizations together and file a joint petition to the Indian government, Health Ministry, CC, MCI or NCP, or what is that called? NMI, right?
NMC, right? NMC,
and then get that fruit out.
Thank you for that answer. The next question is for Dr. Sparsha. So during your journey, how did you overcome the few breakdowns that you must have encountered during your journey?
I think it's better if you have a other hobby, you can do something. I still love baking. So I used to bake at least once a week, and I love watching movies. So I used to watch at least one movie a day. This helps you cool down. If you keep on stressing about the score and stressing about number of questions you have to do. And also it's okay to not do your targets number of questions every day. You set a target, I want to do 80 questions or 60 questions or sometimes 120 questions. Some days if you do just 20 or 30, it's okay. Don't push yourself hard, but not to a limit where you have to break down and you have to take a really long break to again gain that kind of momentum. So I guess it's necessary for you to have a hobby and also a good family and friend support. I guess that's all.
Before we move on to the next question, I would like to request the audience to fill in the feedback form which has been posted in the YouTube chat. It'll be closed after 15 minutes. Thank you so much. The next question for Dr. Sparsha is, how did you know you were ready for the exam? Because many a times people procrastinate and keep extend giving the exam.
You can never be ready for the exam. You can never be ready. Even though you're getting 270, in September, no, actually in August I took UWSA 1 and I got 275. but I still not ready. I waited September, and in mid-October I took my step one. So it's mostly pushed from my family, like how long you're going to study, write it already. And also, when you get a consistent score in NBMEs and UWSS, you get a kind of confidence, like, okay, maybe you can do this. And like most people say, trust your practice scores. If they are good enough, I guess you can set a date and write the exam. But I don't think you'll ever be ready.
I totally agree with Sparsha, because the question that when you are ready for the exam is never there, right? Number two, at one point of time, at least about 3 or 4 years ago, I used to kind of predict based upon the students' performance of how the QBank results are, UWorld results are, NBME results are, and then I can kind of plus minus 5, right? The delineation, so to say, right? But right now, I cannot, because it can fluctuate right now anywhere from plus minus 10 to 15 points. So it can swing up to 15 points and swing down to 15 points based upon, because what is happening in the USMLE exam, what you need to know is, unlike MBBS exams, is the questions changes constantly, right? So what the audience need to understand is that USMLE questions, when we say 15% of the questions are unmarked or unscored, we need to understand that. Because let's say question number 25, they ask you a question, whether you got it right or wrong, that's not going to be scored, because that's experimental question, right? Why? Because that's a new question. Because you need to know why there's an experimental question. Because let's say that Sparsha took the exam and then she came across question number 30, and then that question number 30, more than 75 or 80% of the students were able to get it correct. That is so easy for that level of step one questions. So that's going to be removed in the next season. On the other side, the same thing. Question number 30, if 75 or 80% of the people were able to answer that correctly or incorrectly, that's also going to remove, because it was so tough. So it's not like an MBBS exam where, you guys think that I don't know Indian MBBS exams, but I kind of know over the years that before the MBBS exams, you guys go to a bookstore and say, like, can I get the most 10 years most commonly asked questions? And then you buy the booklet and you memorize the heck of it. And then lo and behold, magically, about 6 or 7 questions out of the 10 questions, they appear or reappear, just like gin that you rub the ring, and then it comes in the exam. And then you answer that question. That doesn't happen in USMLE. So that you need to understand that.
So we have a few questions from the audience. Does the MBBS college matter for USMLE?
I guess that's for me. It did partially at one point of time, but now with the pass and fail, it might get a little bit of more weightage, right? Because I know that I have a colleague of mine who is chairman of a residency, and then he says, like, oh, Tenzin, so AIMS in India, and that's the Ivy League, like Howard and Yale in India, right? I was like, yeah. It was like, how do you know? It's like, no, because I have a selection of students, so I need to make a difference, because I know that, you have traveled internationally. So especially India is your forte. So I just need to know, like, how good about it is. I was like, well, that's the creme de la creme. It's like, what? But then again, I just told him, it's like, fish, just listen. In India, we have the factory of doctors and engineers. Don't just go by A or B or C, because there are a lot of budding institutions which are equally great, but historically speaking, yes, AIMS is, yeah, woohoo, whatever, right? But that doesn't mean that, the university that Ashneet and Sparsha graduated from is like kind of shitty, right? So, but again, the point that I'm trying to make is like, yes, it does matter, but also at the same time, I will also tell you that there are certain residency programs where your predecessors, your seniors, did great. I know a program in Baltimore where if you're a graduate from Maulana Azad Medical School in Delhi, there's a program in Baltimore, Harbor Hospital, right? Harbor. And your seniors in Mbbs did great. That the program director is more than willing to entertain Mbbsiites than any other candidates. And so it all depends on that, how your seniors did. Now, obviously, if your seniors were never there and you're the only person there, then it's just fine. But it does matter, yes.
So next question is, after step 2, how many years will be needed to actually go to the US and start the residency?
It's totally up to you. After step 2, you need to take the OET. Don't forget that. As of now, things might change later on down the lane. And then at the end of the day, step 2 CK, if you take it, I would rather recommend every audience to take the step 3 as soon as possible, because that's the same 2 subjects of the clinical sciences. The only difference in step 3 and step 2 CK is that step 3 goes one step deeper into post-management, complication, and causes, right? So in step 3, if you are beautiful and handsome and attractive in step 1 and step 2 scores, then step 3 is just about pass and fail. If you have a handicap in step 2 CK, now that moving on with the step 1 pass and fail, then you can beautify yourself and have some Botox shot in step 3 by having a higher score. But that really doesn't really matter for the program director as such, because step 3 is licensing, practicing, authorization. That's it.
Thank you for that answer. And that was our last question for the day. I would like to remind the audience again to please fill the feedback form. I would like to thank Dr. Sparsha and Dr. Tenzin for taking out time from their busy schedules and joining us today. Do you have any last words of wisdom for our aspirants out there?
Sure. Go ahead.
I guess don't get overwhelmed by the amount of resources you have for step 1. So everybody has individual resources that they like and that are suitable to them. So go with them and don't feel like you're missing out. And also Kaplan has live lectures like online and also live lectures in USA. So if you can afford it, I think live lectures in USA, face-to-face classes will be really interesting and will help you out.
Okay, so I am sharing a screen. Can you see those?
Yes.
Okay. So to one of the earlier questions that you asked, Sparsha, in terms of the study, we have a proven methodology or pedagogy, so to say, in terms of a successful student versus an unsuccessful student, right? So make sure the timeline at the bottom that you see, 6 to 7 months, 14 weeks, and 3, that depends upon who you are, where you are in terms of your preparation times. But this is what is the most important when you think about embarking about preparations, right? So first phase is called the review phase. Second is called remediation. The last is the practice phase. Don't mix and match all those things because this is not MBBS exam. This is not NEET PG exam. This is not anything else, but this is purely USMLE. So if you have to fight USMLE, you have to learn USMLE and then know your enemy so that you can defeat them, right? So don't think that, oh, okay, fine, I'm the queen and the king of my MBBS exam, so I can do this. Don't, because this is the biggest mistake that people make. So let's go down to the first phase of review. Review, humble yourself down. Don't be cocky. Go back down to the books, the on-demand videos, chapter quizzes, subject assessments. Subject, subject, subject. Become the queen and the king of the subject review. Then let's move on. Once you finish the 7 subjects review, that's going to be the remediation phase. Remediation phase, just like Sparsha mentioned, you can either choose to come to attend the live in-person session for the live lectures, or if you cannot, then you can do the live online. But again, you and I know, because I am an international medical graduate myself, that online is designed for American medical students. We've never been born with a laptop or iPad or smartphone when we were born. We were born with like, kai, and then even the computers were like, Dad, I need a smartphone. It's like, yeah, just wait till you get 18, right? So those kind of things. But again, long story short, life online, I'm not going to say for everyone, but IMGs normally prepare best with people, just like Sparsha mentioned. You need people, you need flesh, you need to argue, you need to discuss, you need to fight, you need to so that you remember, right? Interactiveness and on campus. That's the remediation phase. But remember this, once you reach the remediation phase, when you sit in the live lectures, I want you to be dressed up in much more beautiful gown or a tuxedo, so to say, in a virtual world, on a real sense. And then with folded arms, you should be listening to the professor by saying like, yeah, oh my God, okay, I never got that concept cleared, but now it's cleared. Okay, check, right? Or there will be an update, flash news by saying, all right, guys, page number 27, there's only 2 lines on hepatitis C. But we have seen and noticed that over the months that there are more questions asked on hepatitis C. So add these notes. So there are flash updates. And then you will say like page number 52, there's 10 pages on so-and-so topic. But you know what? Just read it once. But the main important touch point that you need to understand is this. And that's it. So those are the keynotes which you will have to know. Remediation phase is revision by a faculty or a subject matter expert for you. Review phase is your hard work and groundwork that you're doing. And then let's move on to the final phase. That's the practice phase. Eat, sleep, drink, walk, talk, do, even sleepwalk questions. Just like Sparsha mentioned, yes, I've seen a lot of students do questions. And then when I ask them, it's like, what's your score? It's like, 85 or 92. And they feel so cocky about it, right? And it's like, okay, how many blocks was it? It's like, 2 blocks. It's like, all right, when is the exam? And it's like, 2 weeks ago. And it's like, all right. And then they come back after taking the exam, they fail or they suffer. Why? Because they forget that USMLE steps are marathon race. It's not 100-meter dash or sprint. It's not like, one of those times like an Indian sprinter, PT Usha. I do not know whether your generation remembers her name or not, but PT Usha is a sprinter, right? 100-meter dash, like ta 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 ta. That is not this USMLE, right? This is a marathon that you have to run for 8 hours, 7 blocks. You need to build up the stamina, the endurance, and how you need to pace it. Do questions from the review phase itself. But towards the practice phase, you need to build up the tempo so that you survive till the 8 hours of the exam. Because if you don't, then you will suffer the setback. Even though you're a gold medalist in the knowledge of whatever during the phase 1 and phase 2, if you do not practice and build your endurance, you will die of oxygen, even though oxygen is available around. That being said, I would stop sharing this. All right, I'm all yours, Ashneet. If you want to end this session.
Just a minute. Malika will be sharing her screen right now. Till
Sure.
then, I would like to remind the audience to please fill the feedback form. It is compulsory to fill it in order to get the certificates, especially for AMSA members, and we'll be closing it down in a few minutes. And I would also like to thank everyone for joining us today and listening to this conversation. I'd like to hand it over to Malika now.
I think Malika needs to be made the host. Okay. I did not know that I had the power to make her the host. Now she is the host. Malika, welcome in. We can't hear you if you're muted.
Sir, I just wanted to become the host to share the slide. Thank you so much for this great session.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Ashneet. Thank you, Malika. Thank you, Dr. Sparsha. And I hope that this was kind of a deep dive into understanding how a successful candidate is, how she scored. But again, for a kind of a negative person I am, or a logical person I am, do not just kind of listen to a person, but listen to 10,000 people, and then try to understand where you fit in, right? I'm really happy to celebrate and recognize Sparsha's recognition of 270. And then personally speaking, the highest score that I personally have known is 274, right? 274. And interestingly, that also is from India and Bangalore, right? So I would say kudos, because I know that Indian students, they just like kind of amazing, and they have beautiful scores. So keep on doing whatever you're doing. Don't really worry about the WFME 2024, because that's just a process that will happen. So instead of thinking about it's like, what will happen about this? Just go on about doing whatever you're doing. If you were interested, then start studying for preclinicals and then post-clinical studies and step 1 and step 2, right from day 1, and then get it from there. So I think you guys can see the slide. It's Logiquest, which is our face of Kaplan Medical in India. So you can just contact them if you need any information about the programs, whether be it, live lectures, the on-demand, or the live online. And then they have branches all across the states in India, right? With that said, I would like to thank again once the AMSA India, and I would like to congratulate Sparsha, who is also a member of AMSA India, which is kind of a unique kind of a thing, because like AMSA India is so big that they have a lot of candidates, a lot of members, and I believe that it is a perfect platform to recognize those achievers, because sometimes it just goes in the dark, right? So I'm really happy that Logiquest / AMSA India was able to get this thing done together and then highlight some kind of key points. So I'd like to thank AMSA India especially for organizing and having these kind of events up, for encouraging and giving the options to your members. And because that's what I personally believe, like, educating is the key point. It's not about selling or trying to coerce or something like that, but letting them know the options that's available and who's the who in those kind of achievers. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tenzin.
I would like to thank everyone for joining us in today, and a special thanks to Dr. Tenzin and Dr. Sparsha. I would also like to give another reminder regarding the feedback forms. Please kindly fill them.
AMSA India is the regional chapter of AMSA International. We are a non-profitable, non-political organization led and run by budding doctors. AMSA has a wide network of students from Asia, Asia Pacific and beyond. With 27 chapters across the globe, we aim to share knowledge and create international and transcontinental friendships. Closer home, we are established in 23 Indian states with members from more than 215 medical colleges. Various events are organized by AMSA to give our members a chance to showcase their knowledge and skills. We participate in different international conferences like Asian Medical Student Conference and East Asian Medical Students Conference held annually. You get a chance to learn about research and teaching methodologies, practice and hone your clinical skills, and also explore the destination city. Don't have a passport yet? Don't worry, we also host and collaborate in various national conferences like Ethos, Swastik, Confluence, Remedium, and many more. One of our most intriguing and exciting events, USMLE, the Asian Medical Students Exchange Program, where you get to travel and explore the academics, socio-cultural aspects of different countries, contribute through community services, and make new friends. AMSA also gives you the opportunity to compete with other medical students at different levels. You can try your knowledge at our national quizzes like Medinexus, Asclepius, and our new quiz series of Quizathlon. We also have Saturday night trivia and Vocable, the crossword hunt held on our official WhatsApp groups, and we organize activities at state and college levels every month to foster inter- and intra-college relationships. As medical students, it is our responsibility to give back to our society, and for that, we have the Public Health Stewardship Program. It is a set of 11 different projects run by our Public Health and Research Department to bring together medical students who want to contribute to community outreach. We have designed these programs to cover the Sustainable Development Goals as set by the UN. We also have our publications. Revista Medicos is the quarterly e-newsletter published by AMSA India. We have sections including interviews, scientific articles, essays, photography, puzzles, memes, and art, through which you can showcase your literary and illustrative proficiency. AMSA India also gives you a chance to write for international newsletters of FAMSA, CMIO, and AMSA International. We are headed by a regional chairperson. They are assisted by VOCI. Helped by their assistant, the overhead departments run by their own heads and national officers. We also have our liaison officers and state heads along with college heads taking initiatives at regional levels, working together for providing our members the best experience. AMSA India is affiliated with different organizations around the globe. We have also partnered with medical education platforms for making your academic journey easier. Excited to seize the plethora of opportunities? We'll be delighted to have you in our family. Membership is open to all medical students across India. To know more, contact our M&D department or reach out to us on our website or social media platforms, or download the AMSA India app With our vision of knowledge, action, and friendship, we aim to bring together people with similar interests and provide a platform for holistic growth of future healthcare professionals.
So I would like to thank the audience for joining us today, as well as our speakers for the day, Dr. Sparsha, Dr. Tenzin, and the entire AMSA India team once again. Thank you so much for joining us today.